This week, the Project Zomboid dev blog was short but very sweet as it was jam-packed with juicy new details about Build 42. They start off by giving us a brief update on some of the progress with the technical side of certain features we've talked about before, mentioning that the crafting system is currently being implemented into multiplayer, the fishing system is quote-unquote pretty much fully cooked, and the animals are in the bug-fixing stage. Now getting into the good stuff, we begin by talking about the new written literature that they plan on adding. This will include things such as newspapers with articles detailing the initial outbreak, lore items, pamphlets, and even flyers that will reveal interesting locations on the player's map. This will for sure help encourage exploration and could also be very useful in assisting you with locating buildings that might have an item you've been searching for. The devs also say that this will help direct people to some of the places on the map that they are most proud of, especially those lost in the vastness of Louisville. Building off those, they also plan on giving names and more descriptions to things like books, magazines, and photographs, which will give some more insight into the lives of the people who used to live in that house you're currently looting. This can create some interesting or even sad backstories which will only further the immersion of the game. The pictures will have descriptions like photograph of a smiling family or photograph of a wedding car arriving at a church, and apparently the literature you find may correlate with the other objects that can be found in the same house. Like if you find a military history book, there's a good chance that the person who used to live there also has some guns to find in their home. Another major change to the things you can read in-game is that there will now be a cooldown until you can reread something again instead of it just disappearing from your inventory. They also are apparently redoing the illiterate trait, now making it so that illiterate characters are of course unable to read literature items, but with things that have pictures like comic books, catalogs, photographs, and even certain magazines, they can still get a benefit from looking at it. They also won't be able to read or write player-written notes in notepads or on papers, won't be able to write on maps but can still make symbols, and they can't understand nutritional info on food. One final change to reading that they've been implementing is that you will need light in order to read. If there is insufficient light in the player's tile, they will be unable to read or look at whatever they are holding. To tie all this off, there will also be 6 new TV channels, a new radio station, and 75 new VHS tapes. It sounds like Build 42 is really going to expand the storytelling of the game significantly. Next, they show off that there's going to be vehicles which have decals on them showing that they belong to a local or international business. The local vehicles, as well as flyers that relate to specific locations, will naturally only spawn in the areas that they belong in. Whatever is printed onto the vehicle will serve as a hint on what sort of loot can be found inside. The last thing we get to take a look at are those sound effects the player will make that we talked about previously, which are now finally recorded. They have sounds for stuff like huffing and puffing, getting hurt, climbing over things, sneezing, coughing, and even shouting, "Hey!" We are lucky enough to get a chance to listen to some of these work-in-progress sounds. Keep in mind, these are work in progress, so it is subject to change, and they even mention that the audio levels will be adjusted too. So that's all for this week's Thursdoid. Like I said, this one was pretty short, but luckily it came chock full of great new information. It's hard to decide what my favorite thing shown off this week was. From the new player sound effects that add so much more life to the game, all the way to the many new changes with the readable items you can find, it just seems like the list of features coming in Build 42 will never stop growing.